You sit down, you pick up your rosary, you take a breath, and within 3 minutes your eyelids feel like they're made of stone. You're not tired. You slept. You had your coffee. But the moment you close your eyes to pray, something drops on you. Something heavy, something that wasn't there 5 minutes ago when you were scrolling through your phone without a single yawn. This has happened to you before. Maybe it happens every single time. And here's what nobody tells you, what most priests won't say out loud, what most Catholic channels are too afraid to name directly. This is not your body failing you. This is not a coincidence. This is not simple biology. This is a pattern, a targeted, deliberate, ancient pattern. Padre Pio, the man whose hands bled for 50 years, the man who fought demons in the dark of night until the walls of his cell shook. Padre Pio identified this exact moment. He named it. He warned his spiritual children about it. And what he revealed will completely change the way you look at every single prayer you've ever prayed. But before we get there, you need to understand what's actually happening to your body the moment you kneel down, because the enemy doesn't start with your soul. He starts somewhere you'd never expect. Stay with me. This matters more than you think. If every time you try to pray the rosary, you feel that invisible weight dragging you under, write right now in the comments, "Mary, I will not drop my weapon." By writing that, you're making a declaration, not just to yourself, but to every spiritual force that has been trying to silence your prayer life for years now. Let's go back to the beginning. To understand what Padre Pio revealed, you first need to understand the setup. The trap is elegant, it's ancient, and it uses your own peace against you. Get it before we go any further. Because what comes next, you're going to want to be armed. Here is something most people never stop to consider. When you enter genuine prayer, real prayer, the kind where you slow down and actually try to mean the words, something happens inside your body that is objectively, measurably beautiful. Your cortisol drops. Cortisol is the stress hormone. It's the chemical that keeps your fight-or-flight system buzzing at a low hum all day long. It's the reason your jaw is tight. It's the reason your shoulders have been living somewhere near your ears since Monday morning. When you sit in the presence of God with real intention, your nervous system reads the signal. You are safe. You are not being chased. There is no emergency. And it begins to release. Your breathing slows. Your heart rate comes down. The tension you've been carrying loosens its grip muscle by muscle. This is not a flaw. This is a grace. The soul finding rest in God is exactly what it was made to do. "Come to me," he said, "all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Your body responding to genuine prayer with peace and physical relaxation. That is a sign that something real is happening, that the prayer is landing somewhere, that you actually got through. But here's the thing nobody warns you about. That exact moment, the moment your cortisol drops, the moment your nervous system finally exhales, the moment your body lowers its guard, that is the most vulnerable moment in your entire spiritual day. Think about a fortress. When the enemy is pounding at the gates, the soldiers are alert, weapons drawn. Nobody sleeps during a siege. But the moment the gates close, the moment the soldiers believe they're finally safe and begin to rest, that's when the infiltrator slips through the side wall. Your body entering rest during prayer is the gates closing. And something has been watching, waiting for exactly that moment. Padre Pio used to tell his spiritual children that the devil has studied humanity for thousands of years. He knows your rhythms better than your own doctor does. He knows when your cortisol peaks and when it falls. He knows the exact window when you are most likely to drift, and he doesn't waste it. The enemy doesn't always attack with terror. He doesn't need you terrified. A terrified person grips the rosary tighter. Their prayer becomes fierce, desperate, real. Fear can actually sharpen a prayer warrior But a sleepy person just sets the rosary down. And that's all he needs. He doesn't need you to deny your faith. He doesn't need you to curse God. He just needs you to put the beads on the nightstand and close your eyes for a few minutes, because he knows those few minutes will turn into morning. And tomorrow you'll feel vaguely guilty, slightly defeated, and a little less likely to try again. This is the setup. Elegant, patient, almost invisible. But it has a name, an ancient name. And when Padre Pio spoke it, the people who heard him said the air in the room changed. Let's be very clear about something before we go further. The enemy is not creative. He's cunning, but he's not original. Every tactic he uses has been used before. Every trap he sets has been documented. The Church has been cataloguing his methods for 2,000 years, and the saints, the ones who actually fought him face to face, they left records. That's why what Padre Pio said matters so much, because he wasn't theorizing. He wasn't giving a theology lecture from a comfortable chair. Padre Pio was a man who woke up with bruises he didn't have when he went to sleep. A man who was thrown across his cell. A man who heard the demonic screaming in penitence before they even opened their mouths to confess. He knew the enemy the way a soldier knows the enemy, from the field, not from a book. And Padre Pio said this: the moment a soul kneels to pray, the battle begins, not after, not eventually. Here's what the weaponization looks like, step by step, because you need to recognize it in real time. First, the peace arrives, cortisol drops, body relaxes. This is real, this is grace, this is good. Second, something else arrives riding on top of that peace. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel different at first. It feels like the peace just deepened, like you're sinking into something warm. Your thoughts get soft. The words of the Hail Mary start to blur together. You're saying them, but you're not really saying them anymore. You're just making sounds with your mouth. Third, and this is the critical moment, a whisper forms, not an audible voice, not something dramatic, just a thought that feels completely reasonable. You're exhausted. You've had a hard week. God understands. Just rest. You can finish the rosary tomorrow. And it feels like your own thought. That's the genius of it. It feels like compassion for yourself. It feels like wisdom. It feels like self-care. It sounds so reasonable that you almost thank yourself for thinking it. It is none of those things. It is a targeted injection into your most vulnerable biological moment, designed to make you lower the one weapon that the enemy fears more than almost anything else you could be holding right now. St. Louis de Montfort wrote that the rosary is the weapon that makes hell tremble. Those aren't poetic words. That's a tactical assessment from a man who spent his entire life in spiritual combat, and the enemy knows what you're holding. He watched Our Lady give that prayer to St. Dominic. He has watched every soul that picked it up and used it with faith come away changed, healed, protected, freed. He has watched families sealed by it, addictions broken by it, marriages pulled back from the edge by it. He is not going to let you finish it without a fight, so he waits for your cortisol to drop. He waits for your nervous system to exhale, and then he puts his hand on the scale and pushes down. That weight you feel, that is not your body. That is a hand on the scale, and it has a name that the Desert Fathers gave it 1,500 years ago, a name that Padre Pio used specifically when describing this exact battle in prayer. Acidia. Say it slowly. Acidia. It's a Greek word, the Desert Fathers, those radical, sun-scorched monks who walked out into the Egyptian wilderness in the 3rd and 4th centuries to fight the devil with nothing but prayer and fasting. They named it first. They called it the most dangerous of all spiritual attacks because it doesn't look like an attack at all. Acidia is spiritual sloth, but not laziness in the way you're thinking, not the laziness of someone who doesn't care. The brutal irony of acidia is that it attacks people who do care. It specifically hunts the soul that has already made a commitment to prayer. It goes after the person who sat down with their rosary on purpose. The Desert Fathers called it the noonday devil, drawing from Psalm 91, which warns of the destruction that wastes at noonday. They chose noon because that's when the sun is highest, the heat is most punishing, and the monk's spirit is most likely to collapse under what feels like endless, pointless repetition. You're kneeling, you're praying, and suddenly, everything in you asks, why? Why these same words again? Why this same prayer day after day? Does it even do anything? Is anyone actually listening? Maybe I should do something more useful. Maybe I should get up. Maybe I should check just quickly my phone. That is acidia. That is the noonday devil speaking directly into your fatigue. Padre Pio addressed this directly. He told one of his spiritual daughters, a woman who came to him in tears because she kept falling asleep during her rosary and felt deep shame over it. He told her this: "The devil is more afraid of one Hail Mary prayed in the battle than 1,000 prayed in comfort. Let that land. One Hail Mary prayed through the yawns, through the heaviness, through the voice that says give up. That single Hail Mary, fought for, costly hard, is worth more in heaven's economy than 100 prayers said without resistance, because what costs something is worth something. A sacrifice doesn't lose its value because it was difficult. It gains value." Padre Pio also said he recognized the devil's interference in prayer by one unmistakable sign: the attack always intensified at the moment of greatest spiritual potential. When someone was on the verge of a breakthrough, a genuine conversion, a healing, a grace that would change their family for a generation, that's when the resistance peaked. The yawning, the distraction, the sudden, overwhelming need to lie down for just a moment. The enemy doesn't waste energy on prayers that aren't going anywhere. He attacks the ones that are. So the next time you sit down to pray your rosary and that weight drops on you within minutes, don't feel shame, don't feel defeated, don't apologize to God, and close your eyes. You're being attacked because what you're holding is a genuine threat to him. You're being attacked because your prayer was going somewhere. You're being attacked because, on the other side of those beads, something was about to move on your behalf. And now you need to know exactly what to do the moment it starts. Because there is a protocol. The saints left it for us. It is simple, and it works every single time. The moment the heavy yawning starts, not the first yawn, but the second or third, the ones that arrive with that specific weight, that specific pull toward unconsciousness, that is your trigger. Not a trigger for shame, a trigger for action. The first move is to say it out loud, not in your head. Out loud, even if it's barely a whisper. Saint Michael the Archangel, shatter this spiritual heaviness with your sword. In the name of Jesus Christ, I will not stop. Why Saint Michael specifically? Because his mission, his singular eternal mission, is to oppose the enemy, who is like God. That is what his name means in Hebrew, a question that is also a declaration, and the Church has invoked him against the power of darkness since the very beginning. Pope Leo XIII wrote the St. Michael prayer after receiving a vision so disturbing that he went pale at the altar and had to be helped to a chair. He saw what was being done to souls, and his response was to arm every faithful person alive with that prayer. When Padre Pio's own spiritual director asked him how he handled the attacks that came during prayer, Padre Pio's answer was simple. He called on St. Michael and the holy angels, and he refused to stop. He didn't negotiate with the feeling. He didn't try to reason his way through the fog. He picked up his weapon, and he swung it. You need to do the same. Second move, change your posture. Stand up if you were sitting, kneel if you were lying down. The body and the soul are not separate. Your posture sends a signal to both your nervous system and your spirit. A collapsed body invites a collapsed soul. An upright body declares something the enemy needs to hear. I am still here. I have not surrendered. Third move, slow down and press into every word. Hail Mary, full of grace. Not rushing to finish, not performing, meaning every syllable like it costs you something, because right now it does. Pray like a man fighting for every inch of ground, because that is exactly what you are. And here is the truth that changes everything, the truth Padre Pio lived by every single day of his priestly life. If the enemy is fighting this hard to make you stop, your prayer is doing damage. Every Hail Mary you push through under that weight is a prayer prayed in combat. And Padre Pio was absolutely clear. Prayer prayed in combat carries a merit in heaven that comfortable prayer simply cannot reach. When it costs you something, when your eyes are burning, your body is screaming at you to stop, and you keep going anyway, that is not weakness. That is the purest form of sacrifice. The enemy wins the skirmish when you put the rosary down. He loses completely when you finish it. And when you finish it, pay attention to what happens. The weight lifts, it always lifts, because it was never yours to begin with. It was placed on you, and the moment you pray through it, the moment you refuse to be moved, it has no choice but to go. It has no authority over a soul that keeps moving forward. That's the counterstrike. Devastatingly simple, devastatingly effective. But now comes the question that pulls everything together. If the enemy burns this much effort just to close your eyes for 15 minutes, what does that tell you about the weapon you're holding in your hands? Think about this carefully. The enemy is ancient. He has been studying spiritual warfare since before the first human being drew breath. He has watched empires rise and collapse into dust. He has watched the church survive 2,000 years of persecution, heresy, corruption, and fire. He has an intelligence about spiritual reality that most of us can barely imagine. And he is spending that intelligence trying to make you fall asleep during a 15-minute prayer in your living room. Why? Why would a being of that magnitude burn resources on your Tuesday evening rosary? Because he knows something about that prayer that you may have forgotten, or maybe never fully understood. The rosary is not a devotional exercise. It's not a tradition for grandmothers and old Italian men. It's not soothing background noise for a quiet evening. The rosary is a weapon, forged in heaven, given to a saint, and proven in battle for 800 years. Our Lady of Fatima didn't appear to 3 shepherd children in 1917 and ask them to spread the rosary because it's calming. She appeared in the middle of a world war while men were dying in trenches across Europe, and she said, "This is how you fight. This is what will bring peace." Padre Pio prayed up to 15 rosaries a day. 15. On days when his wounds were bleeding through the bandages, when his body was exhausted, when he was under direct spiritual attack so heavy that his brother friars could hear the struggle from outside his door. He prayed 15 rosaries. He called it his weapon. He would rather go without food than without the rosary. And the enemy watched every single one of those rosaries do damage to his plans. Now think about your home. Think about the things in your house that you can't quite explain, the anxiety that has no clear source, the arguments that ignite from nothing and burn for days, the child who wakes up screaming at 3 in the morning, the marriage that feels like it's being slowly hollowed out from the inside, the addiction that disappears for a month and then comes crawling back through the same door, the heaviness that sits in certain rooms. You don't need to be a theologian to connect those dots. A home where the rosary is prayed daily, with faith, with devotion, with the understanding of what it actually is a home under a spiritual protection that the enemy cannot easily penetrate. The saints said it. The popes confirmed it. The testimonies of ordinary families across 8 centuries repeat it, and a home where the rosary keeps getting dropped because someone fell asleep is a home that stays open. This is exactly why I want you to get the guide I mentioned at the top of this video, The Power of the Rosary, with Padre Pio, Miracles, Protection, and Divine Graces. Not because it's a book, because it's a tactical manual for your family. It teaches you how to pray the rosary with the devotion that actually moves heaven, with Padre Pio's own words as your guide. It includes testimonies of miracles that happened to ordinary American families, a 30-day habit-building guide, and specific prayers for protection and healing over your home and your children. The link is pinned in the comments. Get it today, not someday, because the enemy isn't waiting for someday. Your family deserves a home that is sealed. And the rosary, prayed with understanding, prayed through the wait, prayed through every whisper that says stop, is the seal. You came into this video frustrated, maybe a little ashamed, wondering why you couldn't stay awake for something that's supposed to be sacred, wondering if there was something wrong with you, with your faith, with your discipline, with your love for God. There is nothing wrong with you. You've been in a fight you didn't know you were in. And now you know. The yawning is not weakness. The heaviness is not apathy. The voice that tells you to stop, that reasonable, compassionate, perfectly timed voice, is not your voice. You are a soul that chose to kneel. And the moment you knelt, something that hates your salvation started working against you. Not because you're unimportant, because you are. Padre Pio carried wounds in his hands for 50 years, wounds that bled, wounds that soaked through his fingerless gloves every single day. And every single morning he picked up his rosary and he prayed through whatever the enemy sent against him. Cold, physical pain, spiritual darkness so dense that lesser men would have broken and walked away. He prayed through all of it, not because he felt like it, not because it was easy, because he knew with absolute certainty what was waiting on the other side of perseverance. You don't have to be Padre Pio, you just have to refuse to put the beads down. The next time that weight drops on you, and it will, you'll recognize it now. You'll say the name of it, you'll call on St. Michael out loud, you'll stand up straighter, you'll slow down and press into every word like it's the most important thing you've ever said, and you'll finish. And when you finish, something shifts. Something in your home moves, something in the spiritual reality around your family changes, quietly, invisibly, permanently, in a way that could not happen before you pushed through. That is not motivation talk. That is the documented testimony of thousands of souls across 8 centuries who picked up this prayer, refused to let it go, and watched heaven respond. Don't let the enemy have another evening. Don't let him have another rosary. Don't let him have another single minute of the prayer life that belongs to you and to your family. Pick up the beads. Call on St. Michael. Pray like someone who knows exactly who is trying to stop them, because now you do. If this video opened something in you, if you felt that weight of recognition while watching it, share it with someone you love. Someone whose prayer life has gone quiet. Someone who gave up on the rosary years ago and could never quite explain why. This might be exactly what they needed to hear. The link for the guide is pinned in the comments. A sealed prayer life for a sealed home. Get it today. And before you go, write it in the comments one more time. Mary, I will not drop my weapon. Say it like you mean it, because heaven is listening, and so is everything that wants you to stop.